check, check. Check, check. Hey everyone, just letting you know we have our live stream beginning in about 7 or 8 minutes. So now would be a great time to do a last call for drinks or going to the bathroom or food. So you know this talk is going to be live streamed and recorded. So if you're in the front of the room, you may appear in the wide shots. So if you prefer not to appear on the live stream, then I would suggest you sit near the back or the sides of the room. If you don't mind, then stay right where you are. All right, so we will be beginning very shortly.
the growth rate you put in has you growing faster than Groupon, the fastest growing company in the history. Might be right, but just so you know.
It's interesting because when I was doing many companies have great metrics solutions had data on other apps, so they do comparisons to other apps.
Also, during the Q&A,
While over time, you can also search it elsewhere.
Yeah, I was just telling you that.
Yeah, it's still it's like being like somebody has time to think about this larger project and get that feature out.
So Sam, as long as I'm in front of you, that's good, or
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're not starting yet. I just wanted to check that standing notice.
I mean, to be honest, I can also just generally do the day.
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay, let's begin. Everyone take a seat if you haven't had one yet. We have some more spaces up front. Great. I want to welcome everyone to our January Devshop evening program. Super happy that all of you can join us today. This is our first Devshop San Francisco of 2015, so welcome. If you're joining us online, please click the live button, should be over here, to sync up with the live stream coming from Meteor HQ. You can tweet in questions for our speakers using hashtag Devshop on Twitter. Our first speaker tonight is Zach Alexander. Zach is the lead web developer at Apportable, a Y Combinator company making cross-platform mobile development tools. In former lives, he has been a graphic designer, a chef, and a professional gambler, and he studied math and philosophy in undergrad. Zach will be speaking today about 12 lessons from 12 months of using Meteor in production. Please give Zach a warm welcome.
Really quick poll. How many people have never built a Meteor app before in their life? Could you raise your hands? Okay, cool. How many people use Meteor every day at work? Okay. How many people are somewhere in between? Okay. That was a pretty good percentage of people raising their hands at some point. There's that problem where no one raises their hands. That's the title of the talk. You already know that. If you want to see the slides, you can go to zachalexander.com/meteor and follow along. So very brief overview. I was a Rails developer a year ago, but for various reasons was able to start using Meteor pretty much exclusively at work, which I've been really happy about, spoiler. And a lot of people that give talks here, I feel are pretty specialized and have a lot of expertise in one specific area of Meteor or some package or something like that. I don't have any of that, but I've had to solve a pretty wide variety of small to medium-sized problems using Meteor and with people depending on me to do that. So I think I'm a pretty good generalist at this point. And so rather than going really deep into one topic, I thought it would be nice to just sort of cover a lot of different things for a few minutes each. So this is sort of the BuzzFeed talk. I'm aiming this talk at new Meteor devs who have used it, who like it, but maybe aren't sure yet whether it's suitable for more serious projects. Also for other web devs who are considering switching and maybe aren't sure whether it's ready for that. And then in a different vein, I think this talk might be interesting for as a kind of case study for the core team, for people who build packages, as a big picture look into the life of a working web developer who counts on all of these tools to do his job. So a brief overview of the 12 months that I'm talking about. But what do I mean by production? I'm mostly talking about important people will be mad at you if your web app stops working. So if you have investors and you're spending their money, or you have users and they're spending money, or if they have sensitive data, or if there's a lot of time pressure, all of this adds up to this Meteor app is no longer just fun. It may also be fun, but it also involves a lot of responsibility to your coworkers, to users, to other people. That involves stress. So that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say using it in production. I'm not necessarily talking about horizontal scaling, although that's interesting. The companies I've worked for have mostly been enterprisey B2B, so I don't actually have to worry about super high volumes of traffic. So the 12 months that I've been using it, my first exposure to it was at a company called Sorcery. That's a Rails app. And Sorcery makes a wholesale sourcing and payments platform for restaurants and chefs. It's a very cool product. And a year ago, for various reasons, we did a sort of experiment where we rebuilt parts of the platform using Meteor. And it was me and the other devs only, it was our first exposure to really using Meteor. And the project didn't eventually survive, but everyone in the company was really amazed at how fast it was and how many features we could ship in a very short amount of time. Since March, I've been working at Apportable. Apportable makes tools for mobile native not web developers, native developers. So in contrast to a lot of software companies where there's one monolithic web app or mobile app, our product is a mobile SDK which can be marketed and served and consumed in many different ways. So we have several different brands. Each brand has several different sites. So there's a lot of different web properties that I manage. And since I've been there, I've been using Meteor for pretty much all new web apps, with the exception of Discourse for forums, which is a Rails thing. Let me show you a couple of these. So that's Apportable.com. That's a Rails app. That's sort of our enterprisey platform. I had another one up, but this is fine. So this was probably the first like actual Meteor app that I built, and it doesn't do a whole lot. There's a blog. It pulls content from a forum, but this is probably the most complicated web app that I've built with Meteor. And this isn't a demo, so I'm not going to go in a lot of depth here. But the core feature set of this is similar to something like the Apple, like the Mac App Store or Google Play. So we're selling first-party content. Third parties are also able to upload their products. Hopefully, users buy them. We take a 30% cut of that. So there's a lot of features packed into that, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I just showed you some examples. And that is a good segue to, so they made me put this slide in. It was in the contract. No. So this is the spoiler. I'm going to get into some of the challenges that I've had with Meteor in the rest of the talk, but basically it's been really awesome. I initially started out liking Meteor. It was a very good quality of life thing as a developer, but I wasn't convinced that it was the sort of thing that you could build something that handled lots of money with. So I was cautious, but at Apportable I started out with like the first project that I used Meteor for was like a documentation site. So it was kind of low stakes, and I had a good experience with that. And so I basically ramped up to more and more complicated projects. And then eventually this fall when we were like, yeah, we want to actually build this asset store, at that point I was like, we totally are using Meteor. I trust that it's going to work and it's going to be faster than using Rails or something else. And really the past year, I have not had many unpleasant surprises. The ones I have had have mostly been with like third-party packages. The core platform has been just amazing. So I have no regrets, and I highly recommend it to pretty much everyone, with a few caveats, which I'll get into. So it's so awesome that I feel bad because I think twice now, like on the weekend when Meteor development group people like want to just not think about Meteor for like a couple hours. Like I'm like, oh my God, Meteor is awesome. Can we talk about Meteor? And like they're like, can we like talk about this some other time? So I'm sorry, guys. But so Meteor is awesome overall, but there are these funny exceptions, and I feel like there's a pattern where you trade big problems for smaller, weirder problems that you maybe took for granted before. And I apologize that these aren't very. I'm going to give two little examples of this pattern. I don't know if these are still current, like maybe with the latest version of Meteor and latest version of Iron Router and so on, these would work fine. But like, anchor fragments, like jumping around a page, like a table of contents, that just works out of the box with like a web browser. But I've had a lot of issues getting that to work in all the edge cases with Meteor and Iron Router. Another one that may or may not be an issue for you, if you need like a really deep Facebook integration with your web app where every page has a dynamically set like Open Graph header tag or head tag, that might be hard. That would be pretty trivial in a lot of web frameworks, but I've had a lot of trouble getting that to work in Meteor. So I don't know. On net, I think it's awesome, but just sort of mentally prepare yourself for like once in a while you're like, wow, I always assumed this would be easy, but there's a few things that aren't. So overall, I actually really like the what seems to be the philosophy of the core team, which is making Meteor not extremely opinionated. So it's flexible. You can use it in a lot of different ways. It's easier to get started with. But I'm not like an evangelist for like MVC or MM, all those other acronyms. But I do think for once a web app gets to be a certain level of complexity, it's just going to be harder to reason about it if you're not organizing your code according to some principle, and MVC is one good one. So the platform itself is not really MVC, but you should probably make it that way if you want to use it seriously. And so for models, there isn't, that I've come across, a really great solution. I'm mostly using Minimongoid, but it's a little rough around the edges in some ways. I see some people kind of creating their own solutions, but I wish that the core team or some package author, or maybe I should try to do this, would just make a really awesome package that was like built for Meteor. Another thing with models, I didn't know about this for the longest time. So there's a method you can pass to a collection which will automatically modelize it according to whatever you specify whenever you do a fetch or a find one. And this is really handy because if you don't know this, which I didn't for many, many months, you're constantly thinking like, okay, is this object like a Mongo object, like a raw Mongo object, or has this been modelized and do I have access to all these helper methods and so on? I've gotten pretty used to thinking that way, but save yourself that trouble and just use transform when you can. Controllers, I think everyone's using Iron Router, but that's where your controllers go. So this is a big one. I feel like I got like twice as fast when doing client-side work in Meteor after I figured this out. So if you're not familiar with the term data context, it's basically like the current object whenever you're in a template. And so some tutorials that I see seem to encourage a pattern where like every time you need dynamic content in a template, it's like, oh, well, you just go to the JavaScript file and you write a helper. And that gets old really fast if you're doing a lot of templates. And it turns out if you just think for a minute about what is the current object, or have you even set one? If you haven't set one, you probably should. So like imagine like like a blog post. You have a title, you have content. You don't want to have to like write helpers for those. You just set the context to like a post object, and those template tags will just work. There's a really good Discover Meteor article. The underline means that's a link, so if you go to the website, you can click there and see the article, or you can just Google it. Don't use session for everything. Maybe this is just me, but I don't know. I feel like the docs are like, oh, you can use session for this, and it's super handy sometimes, but like often when I'm like, I don't know, it seems to get messy, and if you look for other alternatives, there's often alternatives that don't use global state. So maybe this one might be a tiny bit controversial. So allow deny is, it's good that exists, but I almost never use them. I think I literally have never used deny, and I use allow in like very minimal ways, like allow if admin, And the reason for that, I used to think that I was doing it wrong, but recently I decided that like the reason I don't really do that is that like using allow deny as the sole place where you authorize changes to the database means you have to reason about authorization like in the abstract, all of the things relating to a collection in the aggregate, like in one place, and then in isolation to other collections. And that's just like a weird problem that isn't intuitive for me. So if most of your database modifications from the client happen in server methods, I just find that a lot easier to think about, and maybe that will help you as well. So I'm not trying to start a fight with this. It's like, I actually for a while was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like try the Mongo way of doing things, And I actually think Mongo, like, I'm sure if you're really into Mongo and you're into using it in production, like, you know what you're doing, but I personally just find it a little too loosey-goosey. It's really great as an easy way to get started and have data without having to like have all the rigmarole of SQL. But like once I start really caring about my data and wanting it to be consistent and so on, I just really miss SQL. So SQL support is coming at some point, but in the meantime, I'm increasingly like avoiding like Mongo-y conventions and just sort of pretending that I'm using SQL. So that means things like normalizing your collections. If you normalize your collections, you're going to have to learn about reactive joins. And these are some packages for schemas and stuff like that that can also help you have a bit more of a SQL experience. Server routes, I haven't used these extremely heavily, but I have had to implement like APIs and DRM for things that don't use the web and they just use JSON. Single sign-on between a Rails app and a Meteor app, redirects. So this has all been pretty straightforward and it's worked pretty well. Iron Router server routes, I think, are probably the best tool for most cases. So if you ever need to make an API, just use that. And then there's the web app package if you need like more down to the metal abilities. So deployment, I feel like that's maybe a little bit optimistic because like I feel like deployment kind of sucks right now. And maybe that's my fault because I'm using Heroku. Don't make fun of me. It's partly for legacy reasons. It's all the main downside of Heroku is that you can't actually scale. Like they only support one server, one web app server. Otherwise, it's great. So it's not even going to work for me. Like I need to scale some of my apps soon. So the main like more serious options are Modulus and Meteor Up. I've used Modulus a fair amount and I like it. I tried to use Meteor Up recently and ran into a bunch of issues, and I was like, I could spend hours trying to troubleshoot these, or I could use the platform as a service, which the whole point of that is they save me from having to do that. So your mileage may vary, but that was my experience. I just really want there to exist like a Heroku Modulus-y service that the features that I really want are like Git-based deployments, which Modulus doesn't have. And the ability to run Meteor Shell on the server, which I don't think Modulus can do. So hopefully someone is working on that. This was probably the worst experience I had with Meteor. This wasn't at Apportable. This was a personal project, but it was like for a nonprofit that had like a lot of users, and there was like a launch date, and there was all this stuff happening where it was around the upgrade between 0.8 to 0.9 when a lot of packages were being changed, and some of them weren't migrated properly. I was using a third-party Accounts UI Bootstrap package. I can't remember which one, and I all of a sudden I just was having tons of issues with users not being able to log in or being logged out. And eventually I figured it out, but I had to like rip out a bunch of UI and redo it, and the whole experience just really sucked because I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. So my takeaway from that is accounts are like pretty mission critical. If you really need to customize, like write your own accounts package, like knock yourself out. But I think most people should just be using the core packages because they work and they're well maintained. So if you don't like the way the default packages work, which sometimes I don't, just customize them with CSS and JavaScript. You can also get more hardcore customizing that package. But I just don't really trust using third-party packages for accounts anymore because I just don't want to deal with that. Otherwise, packages are starting to be pretty awesome. So a few, even like 6 months ago, I feel like I would like look for packages and I wouldn't find things or they would be janky. But increasingly, like I'm like, oh, is there a package for this? Yeah. Does it work? Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. And I've already mentioned a bunch, but I want to just call out a couple that have been great. CollectionFS is for file uploads. It's a little overwhelming because there's a lot of options, but if you just kind of give it the time to read the docs, like you'll be fine. And it works really great. Autoform is also really awesome. I never was into form helpers as a Rails dev because I just felt like they got in my way. But there's enough like client-side reactivity and stuff that you might want, like validating, against a schema and stuff like that. That I feel like this does actually, it's worth the trade-off of having to learn a forms tool. And then the last thing that I have learned a number of times over the past few months is that testing is a work in progress. It's getting there. Velocity has come a long way. But probably the biggest thing I learned is I kept trying to get Velocity to work, and I couldn't get it to work. And I realized that part of that was not really Velocity's fault. Velocity like depends on like other frameworks like Jasmine or Mocha or Nightwatch. So in my experience, like it's the Jasmine package is a big say. Give it a few months. Like don't really try to use it. Otherwise, I would recommend starting with Mocha. I've had a lot better luck with that. And those are my 12 things I'd like to share with you. A couple more thoughts since I have like a minute and a half left. Going back to the second slide where I was like, Meteor solves big problems for you, and then you're left with like weirder problems. The biggest picture thought that I keep having about Meteor over the past year, especially the past like 6 months, is, oh shit, I changed focus here, is what about CSS? Because there's these two countervailing trends where on the one hand, like, you have to write more and more CSS, and I love CSS, believe it or not, because devices are getting more diverse. There's retina screens. Soon there's going to be smartwatches, and your boss is going to want to make your thing responsive on smartwatches. And then on the other hand, Meteor is making everything but CSS much easier and faster. So the result is, I feel like, rather than like, I'm a web developer and then I write a little CSS here and there, it's like, I write CSS for a living, and then every so often I build a web app. And that's a great problem to have. But that is now a major problem that I have, is like, I have all these tickets for like the Sprite Builder store, and the ones that intimidate me the most are not the like JavaScript based features. It's like, oh, I have to make this responsive. Oh man. So I would love to just like plant a seed in the minds of the core team, of other people who build Meteor tools, maybe Sasha Greif. Hold on. And just think, maybe further down the line, what would be some cool tools that might revolutionize the way we write CSS in the same way that Meteor has made everything else more awesome. So that's my talk. I just want to thank people at my company, my boss Colin, developers Kiana, Maria, and Emily. All of them have had a hand on the Sprite Builder store. And I also want to thank the Meteor team for having me and for making this cool product. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Zach. We have 5 minutes for questions, so fire away.
Over there.
So in terms of using session variables less often, do you do anything besides template reactive bars? Like adding to the template data?
So the question was, what are some strategies for avoiding using session variables aside from reactive template variables? It's hard. I can't think of a way to answer that in the abstract. It really just depends on the specific feature I'm trying to build. But like helpers, events, there's other things at your disposal aside from. It's not that session variables are the devil. It's just like, I don't think it should be like the tool you like always reach for first.
Any other questions for Zach? All right, if you're watching
Over there, in the striped shirt.
So I just loaded your page, the Sprite Builder store, and I opened up the network tab, and I'm getting 7.9 megabytes transferred and 7.8 seconds to load.
Uh-huh.
With 1 year experience, what's your comments on that?
So probably the reason for that, actually I know the reason for that, is that, so there's a bunch of like assets that are being loaded there, and I have not optimized that for performance basically. So so when it's like, the smart thing to do is like, there's a tile of like 1632 products, and those are actually very small images, and what I should be doing is like taking image magic and like taking the big versions and cropping them down and so on and so forth. And I'm just not doing that because like that's not our biggest problem right now. Like the culture at my company is a bit like, rather than trying to make something perfect, we make it decent, and then we figure out what the next biggest problem is, and we solve that. And so at some point, this may become a problem. But right now, it's just not what I'm optimizing for. And I think most of that is my fault. I don't think it's Meteor. I think it's me not cropping my images.
If you're watching the live stream online, you can tweet in questions for Zach using hashtag Devshop. Right. Any other questions from the room? I think I saw someone. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, then thank you, Zach.
Thanks.
Okay, next up we have Sam Hatoum and Mike Risse speaking about super fast end-to-end testing with Velocity. Sam is the founder of Zolvio and a core member of the Velocity team. He's also the author of the Meteor testing manual and the Meteor Cucumber testing framework, Meteor WebDriver, and he wrote RTD, the first unit and end-to-end testing framework for Meteor. Mike Risse wrote and maintains Mocha Web, the first integration testing framework for Meteor. He's also a core member of the Velocity team and is responsible for all the Velocity support in the Meteor core. He's also the author of MeteorPad, which allows you to share Meteor code snips with others. Everyone, please welcome Sam and Mike.
Hello there, everyone. So today we're going to talk about end-to-end testing with Velocity, and after we've talked about that for a bit, we're going to talk about how you can make it super fast. My name is Mike Risse.
I'm Sam, and we're both on the core Velocity team, as we just heard. So I'm writing a book called the Meteor Testing Manual. It's all about how to do unit testing, end-to-end testing, integration testing with Meteor. And today and tomorrow, you get a 20% discount if you go to /Devshop. And that's my plug for the day. So Mike's going to talk a bit about Velocity.
Yeah, so Velocity, for those of you that aren't familiar, is the official Meteor testing solution. It's a community effort. And one of the main goals with Velocity is to make it so that testing is reactive. So as soon as you save a test, you immediately get feedback. It's been a long time coming, but it is getting very close to 1.0, something that we're comfortable is stable. I work on the Mocha project for Velocity. Sam here works on Cucumber, and there's a bunch of other ones too.
So I'm going to show you a demo of Velocity for those that haven't seen it. I'm just going to make these windows a little bit bigger. Oops. There you go. Is that all right, the screen? Okay, so I'm going to just add a new Meteor app. Meteor create hello Velocity. Well, hell Velocity will do. CD that. Meteor. And on here, I'm going to go to localhost. Let's give that a second to fire up. So this is our fantastic app where you can just click the button and the counter goes up. Great. So now I'm going to go into Velocity here, into the new app. And I'm going to say Meteor add Zolvio Cucumber. Now Zolvio Cucumber depends on Velocity. So Velocity is a testing middleware, if you like. And Cucumber depends on it. So the first thing you see is that Velocity's been loaded into the app, and you get this little dot up here. So this is in your app. Click this dot, and it gives you how many tests are passing. At the moment, there's no tests, so Cucumber and other frameworks also allow you to add sample tests by clicking this button. So I'll click it. And this is my project. You can see Meteor rebuilding down here. And what's happened is it's just added a bunch of tests and a bunch of boilerplate code that's needed to get the test running. So it's an intentional failure. It says here intentional failure because the title is not correct. So let me close that and show you what the idea of reactive testing is. The little red dot up there is just like a continuous integration server if you've ever used one. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to change this to what it's expecting, which is hello Velocity. Oh, you shouldn't have said that. And now we get a green dot. So I do something that makes the test fail, and I get a red dot. I open it up, and it can tell me all about what the problem is. So that's Velocity, and it allows you to do that with other frameworks too. And we'll go into a bit more detail about what this framework here is shortly. Now, I'd like to give you an end-to-end testing overview as well. Who knows what an end-to-end test is? Excellent, then you're all going to learn something. So when we talk about end-to-end, we talk about a test from a user's perspective, if the user is accessing the site. So the end-to-end boundary here lies between the browser and the database, because that's the entire system. If we're talking about a REST API that's accessing the system, then we're saying the end-to-end boundary lies between the server and the database. And so the important thing here to realize is that when you're looking at end-to-end tests, you're looking at it from the perspective of the consumer. If that's the user, then it's from the browser all the way to the database, and if that's an API, then it's from the server to the database. Now, Velocity lives on the server, and so what you saw there is an end-to-end test framework, Cucumber, and it uses WebDriver, and that's the thing that goes to the browser and does some testing. Now, when you're doing that locally, and the developer's also using the same application, what happens is you get a collision with the database. So the test just wants to kill all the users before it reruns and does some assertions, and the developer's sitting there trying to access the site, and all the users are being cleared. So that's not going to make it very easy to develop an app. And so what we came up with for velocity is the mirror concept. And a mirror is an exact replica of the main application, and it's really lightweight. It runs after the Meteor build process happens, and it takes milliseconds to start up. And so in doing so, it means that the tests can run against a separate database, a separate browser, a separate everything, and the developer can be happy working on their own application. So I want to show you what end-to-end testing looks like today with velocity. Let me exit this guy so it doesn't play havoc. All right. So I'm going to start running Meteor down here. Reload this. And while that's running, I'm going to show you this end-to-end test. So Cucumber is what we're looking at here. Cucumber gives you the syntax called Gherkin syntax. And Gherkin is like English. So you have this ability to say what the feature is. If you're familiar with Agile, that's a story type syntax. You've got here some more context you can put in, like links to a web page or something like that. Let's turn off all these show passing tests. And the interesting thing is when you get down to this part here, which is given, when, then. So we're using English. And this English phrase, I am on the home page, translates to executable things. So let me show you what that looks like. I am on the home page. I navigate to /. Here's the definitions. It says, I am on the home page. It uses some regex to get the given phrase. Cucumber, this framework, gives you a browser object. Browser, we tell it to go to the URL of going to the Meteor absolute URL, which is the home page. The next step says I navigate to this thing here, which pulls out a parameter and gives it to us as relative path. So we say URL, go to this relative path. And then we say, then I should see the title of expected title. So we tell the browser to go and fetch the title from the web page that's running at that at the previous path. And then it gets the result. We get the value of that result and make sure that it's equal to the expected title. And that's why you see when I change this to be a different title, that's why the test fails. So that's what an end-to-end test looks like. This is done in Cucumber here, but really the end-to-end part is the part here where the browser is doing the accessing of the web app. That's a demo of how you can do velocity end-to-end today.
And so I don't know if you noticed, but that suite that he just ran took 81 seconds. Is there anyone in the audience that has a end-to-end test suite that they run regularly? And if so, it probably takes a long time. Because usually when you have a real app, you're talking about hundreds of these. And it can take anywhere from like minutes to hours to run a large end-to-end test suite. So that's no good. And what's the answer? Parallelize it. So to think about how we're going to parallelize, let's first look at a typical end-to-end test and some of the things it does. So often you'll start with a clean database, create a generic user, and log them in and make sure that they're logged in. Now, this won't work if you want it to be run safely in parallel on the same server as a bunch of other tests. You can't have tests resetting the database. Every user that you're creating has to have a unique username and email. And even after you've handled all of these various edge cases, there's still going to be this nagging doubt in the back of your mind that your tests are interfering with each other when they're running in parallel. So we wanted to explore a different approach. And Sam talked about how we used mirrors earlier to separate the testing environment from the dev environment. And we thought that we could use mirrors to separate the testing environments from each other. So what we're going to show you next is what this looks like when you're running a bunch of mirrors together at the same time.
So we have a test that works parallel locally. Let me just exit out of this. So you saw that took 81 seconds. Now, the new version of Velocity, which is almost there, actually this is a new version of Cucumber, you can specify how many mirrors you actually want to run. So now I'm going to run 4 of them. Let's do some simple maths. You've got 81 seconds, and you've got 4 mirrors running now. So I'd say divided by 4 would be about, what?
20 seconds.
Right. OK. You can see already that's a lot faster than before. So it took, 80 seconds. That's a minute and a bit. And locally, I can now run the same test much quicker. But that's not fast enough, is it, Mike?
Nope.
And we want to make that even faster.
So what if you want to run thousands of end-to-end tests at once? Is that even conceivable? And with the amount of like computing power that you have on a laptop, the answer is no. But if you run your cloud, or if you run your tests in the cloud, that is possible, and that's what the next demo is.
To the cloud. All right. So, oops. So this, I'm going to now run on a humongous instance in the cloud. I'm going to run 40 of these mirrors. So this is still alpha software. I'm going to put that disclaimer out right now. Okay. So here we go. It's now going to start them all up. Great, it's looking good. It started 40 phantoms, 40 of those things, and it ran all tests in around 2 seconds. Well, actually, it's 4 seconds, but if I do it again, it would be 2 seconds. Let's see. Have we got 2 seconds? All right, it didn't work. Okay, I told you it's alpha. So anyway, I mean, you can see that by running it in the cloud, there's just some timing issues and things like that that should be fairly easy to fix. But once these work, then we have actually seen this run as quickly as 2 seconds. All right. So we talked about end-to-end testing, how you can do it today with Velocity, how you can get started very quickly doing end-to-end testing, and how, without any additional work, once we get it fully working, without any additional work on your behalf, you don't have to do any crazy stuff to make the tests run in parallel. It will just happen for you. Now this, you can't really do with any other framework. And the reason Meteor makes it so easy is because it's fully enclosed and we can run mirrors really quickly. So that's what you can do with Velocity in end-to-end testing today.
And we still have a lot of ideas about where we could go beyond this, though. One is that server that you saw running the tests in the cloud, that's something that can be shared amongst the whole team, because most of the time, each individual developer doesn't need to be running the tests. We're also interested in exploring some integrations with SaaS Labs, so that you could test with a bunch of different browsers at the same time and use more than just like the Phantom that you saw today. Also interested in using Docker, both for better isolation and also so that you could run something locally on your laptop that's more similar to what you'd see in production. And maybe most importantly, there's no reason that this has to be used only for end-to-end tests. It could be used for anything like integration tests or performance tests. Basically, we don't think that there's a reason that you should have to wait much more than like 5 to 10 seconds to have your whole test suite run.
And that's it. That's the end. This is a proof of concept. It's almost there. It's almost usable. The distribution of end-to-end tests for Cucumber is almost usable. And if you're interested in helping out, please do get in touch. And now you've seen this presentation end-to-end.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam and Mike. Again, if you're watching this presentation online through the live stream, you can tweet in your questions using hashtag Devshop. Does anyone in the room have questions? Here.
So what's the current state of thinking between tiny test and velocity and kind of how they work together or conflict?
Repeat the question.
Right. What's the relationship between tiny test and velocity, more or less? Yeah. So I'm actually working on making Mocha work with package testing. So you can like swap out the tiny test piece and put Mocha in instead. It's not like ready for prime time yet, but it's not super complex to do that. And I know Jonas, who's working on Jasmine, is interested in doing the same thing to make it so you could use that. Yeah, is that? Basically, the tiny test is something that can be plugged with other frameworks. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
And tiny test is the only thing that allows you to do package testing right now. But as soon as this approach that Mike's got works for both Mocha and Jasmine, then you shouldn't need tiny test.
I should mention also, when velocity is used in that way, it's being used more to collect the results and report them to the user. And it's not doing the things with like mirrors and whatnot that it's usually doing. So it's sort of a piece of velocity that's used in that situation.
Can you expand upon the details on how you parallelize different test cases at least, and how I presume you avoid different instances running the same test, right? So how do you allocate tests between them?
So the way that demo runs is you've got 60 features. and we fire up 40 workers. So the mirrors are like workers, and they consume these features from the database, and they mark them as done as they get them done. So if you've got 100 tests on files, it's going to just go through those one by one. So a mirror will come up. It'll keep consuming from these files until all files are depleted, and then it'll turn itself off.
Any other questions?
Yes, when you were running the test in parallel, were you running on a single processor or multiple processors? And do you have plans to run in multiple processors if you weren't?
Yeah, so the question was, were the tests running on a single process or multiple processes, and if there are any plans to run on more cores. Because each mirror that started was its own process, its own node process, it by default takes advantage of multi-cores on a machine. So a node can only run on one core. But once you have 40 node processes running, then the operating system would distribute them to different cores. So we don't have to do anything, we get it for free.
But can you have even multiple machines and run across multiple machines as well?
Yeah, so the other question is, can you have multiple machines? That's actually on the plans. We were hoping to have that as a demo for today. But yeah, that's the plan, to say, you can have 4 really big beefy machines if you had to, and that's where you could run 200, 500 mirrors. Yeah.
If I wanted to learn more about velocity, where would I go?
So the question is, if I want to learn more about velocity, where do I go? Well, you tell me, Robert. So we go to, the first place to go to is velocity.meteor.com. That's the official website for Velocity. And then I'll do another plug for my book, is you can go to my book and read more about it there.
Any more questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to take a short break, about 8 or 9 minutes. At 7:50, we're going to start the lightning talks, and you can see the lineup for that at lightning-talks.meteor.com. If you're giving a lightning talk, please find your way back here right away, and Sam can get you mic'd up and get you ready for your talk. So for the rest of you, please stretch your legs, take a bathroom break, talk to your neighbor, and I will see you at 7:50. Yeah, that shows like the total time.
Terrible style, but you can do it. You better do it now. No, not free. Then I was like, oh shit, I need a structure. You just have to be a little bit more disciplined. You know, when Blaze comes out with the API, it's just like a little, for example, if you ever want to reuse this template and lots of other templates, the way you have to configure it, you either basically torture the concept, right? But it's not tomorrow. There's only one way.
Hey, once again, if you're giving a lightning talk, if you could please come to the front of the room. We'll be starting lightning talks in just a few minutes, so please come to the front of the room if you're giving a lightning talk. So Sam, who are you missing? Max and Tyler? Okay, I'll see if I can find them upstairs. I'll go upstairs and then back. Yeah. Hey everyone, Could Tyler Smith please come to the front of the room? We're starting lightning talks in just a minute. All right.
I'm gonna run upstairs because I think I know where it's.
I just checked upstairs, yeah, but I think I might ask like Robert or something. All right, so we have lightning talks beginning now. First up, we have Max Harris, and he's going to be showing us some education apps that they've built with Meteor.
Hi, guys. So I'm a software engineer with Laporte Labs. So our company, our parent company is Laporte Schools. We have 13 schools all over the country, so in SoCal, Brooklyn, and the Bay Area. And Laporte Labs is a team embedded in this private network of Montessori schools. So just this past January, we opened this school just down the street at 50 Fell. And I'm going to show you 2 web apps that we made using Meteor. Oh, you're not supposed to see that slide. Okay. All right. So the first app is this collaborative document editor that we use to edit our report cards. So this editor is actually Daniel Earwicker's Kuroda text editor that has all of these wonderful rich text features. And it stores its text in a JSON format. And the work that we've done is to extend it to do these other features, such as commenting. So you can hover over these comments like this, and it will actually reach into this Canvas text editor and highlight the text run associated with that comment. We also added this edit history there. So this thing basically runs over the text runs and does diffs between them. So the second thing we have is our second generation system. So it has these 4 parts to it. The first is a student information system. We use to store student information in records. And so here we have all of these custom widgets we've done that rely heavily on Meteor Reactive-R and Blaze template instance APIs. So here we have this wonderful little time picker I can show you. You can flip around. So you can set the minutes here. And you can switch between AM and PM. And you can actually have multiple instances of this thing that won't clobber each other up on the screen. And you can change these times, and they reflect in that string, that schedule string up there. Okay, so the next feature is this task manager that you can go to. So it has this little feature in it that you can go and you can basically view the history of the task, like where people have sent this thing and how it's gone through the system and who did what and when. And so we're actually doing more dynamic SVG in this little box here to render this tree. So basically, I sent a task to these 2 people. One of them grabbed it up and delegated to another group of people and sent it back to me, and they sent it to this other group, that kind of thing. So we have this way of sending tasks to people that's kind of cool. So you can go and you can search for people and add people onto a task and send them off, and they go into the other inbox and that kind of thing. And so if you open one of these up, we've got this wizard that asks the teacher all of these different questions. And we've actually got 3 kinds of layouts. I'm actually trying to search and find another one for you. Let's see if this one will do it. Yeah, so this one has like 88 questions in it. And so these 88 questions actually go into making a Montessori progress report for younger children. So we have 3 kinds of widgets that are in here. And I want to stress that these things aren't hard-coded templates. These basically come from this this JSON template, for lack of a better word, that puts them up there. And we have a lot of cool little features in there. Like we track the progress. If you look, it says 6%. So if I click some more of these questions, it'll keep going and basically show you where you are. You can scroll around. We've got a text widget at the bottom, so you can enter text. Okay, and the final thing I want to show you is we have dynamic PDF generation on the client side using PDFKit.js. So you can save that thing, and you get this tiny little 80 kilobyte document that our system generates, and it's right there. Okay, so back to the slides. All right, so that's our school again. So this is their team. So Chris Alexander up in the corner is the really highly talented designer that I worked with to make these apps. And everybody else is very much fun to work with. And we're hiring. So come and ask me any questions you might have. I think we're out of time, right? Yes?
Does anyone have questions for Max?
Yes?
What was the front end piece? You use your CSS framework? Or?
Yeah, so actually we use Stylus to do all of the styling stuff. That's really Chris's job. I didn't do any of the styles.
Beautiful.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, up next, we have Dan, DV, is what most of you may know him online. So Dan will be giving a talk on Meteor for enterprise apps.
I can use any laptop.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you. It's about Meteor for enterprise, or really building UIs without any code at all, almost. All right, so funny that the talk before me was about building this nice fancy UI, because I'm going to show you how you can skip all that. And let's say you want a table. Meteor gives you a lot of code that deals with data sync and server-side full stack, but nothing for the UI. So you have to resort to handlebars, basically, and you write this bunch of code, which gives you something like this. And it's not exactly very expressive. You can see at a glance what's going on here. Now the next step is to use a package. And you can use something like reactive table, which looks somewhat more intelligible. You say reactive table, then you pass a bunch of parameters, which you define in the template, and you get something better. You have some free features. You have a filter, you have pagination, and you have sorting. And these come for free, and this is great. But let's say we want more components. Let's say we want a tree, or we want a tree table, more sophisticated stuff, or tabs with icons in them, or layouts that you can resize, or a really powerful table. Notice the scroll bar there, it's in the middle. You have these fixed columns, and you can slide data in the middle. And you could get individual widgets for this, maybe from the jQuery space, but there are a bunch of problems with that. You have wrappers atmosphere, which kind of suck. I had to talk about that in December. Hopefully, we are going to fix that soon. But the problem really is that each of these has different APIs. And they also look inconsistently. Just kidding about the smiley face. Actually, that sucks too. So then you can use a UI widgets library or a component framework. And if you remember the good old days of Dojo and EXT.js or Kendo or the HTMLX, these things are kind of dusty. They look old school. But there has been innovation in that space. And I looked at all of them. This is actually only 1/3 of my analysis on Stack Overflow. I had to tile it, that didn't fit very well. And the winner essentially is this library called Webix, which is built on the HTMLX. It's a fork of it. Over the past year and a half, they worked on it, and it looks really nice. Almost every component in it is open source, but a few of them are professional, have to pay for, which is great because that's how they fund the development. And this is a demo to show you kind of how this looks. I think I had to click command on that. Yeah, so watch this space carefully. If you can't see the code clearly, it doesn't matter. The point is you type that code and you get that UI, and that's only 11 lines of code, and it's not a video. This is a real component. And that's how expressive this framework is. And I have another demo there, but we don't have much time left. The thing is, I'm working on integrating this with Meteor so that you can feed Meteor collections to all these widgets, and you're going to have data tables and trees and grids, all based off of Meteor collections. And it's on GitHub. I just posted a repo a few minutes ago under my name, DanDV. It's called Meteor-Webix. And stay tuned, watch that repo. Hope to have it done in a few weeks. If we have some more time, I can show what the final product will look like, maybe while taking questions. So this is an admin app built, well, let me find the URL for this. That one. So an admin app built with Webix looks kind of like this. It's really sleek, nothing of the old school dusty Dojo days. You have components for everything you can imagine. You have charts, you have forms, master detail, editing. Here are a bunch of charts, there will be the HTML canvas, calendar, file manager, even Kanban widgets and schedulers, and everything you need to build an admin or enterprise app.
Great.
And so that will talk. Thank you.
All right, we have a question from Sashko.
Is it possible to use Webix for just part of your app and have the other part in HTML?
Yes, actually, Webix works extremely well with integrations. It integrates with jQuery, Angular, for example, chart apps, chart libraries, maps, Backbone, the HTMLX, so yeah.
Cool. Can you repeat the question real quick?
The question was, can you use Webix with your own libraries, or do you have to be logged into Webix? And the answer is nope. You can use it with a lot of third-party libraries, and it integrates with them on purpose.
Cool. Great. Time for one more question, if anyone has one. All right. Thanks very much, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Brad Ryan. He's the developer and co-founder at Tahoe Tech Bus. He's going to talk about creating a planning and transportation platform on Meteor.
All right. Let's see. Add up here. Do I gotta do something? Can you hear me? All right. And this is it. Andrew as well.
Hey guys. So I'm Andrew. This is Brad. Just to preface this whole talk, we're both mechanical engineers. We never developed an app until about 6 months ago. Meteor was our first platform. So pretty exciting stuff. And today we're just going to kind of show you what we've done over the last 6 months and kind of the problem that we're trying to solve. So the whole idea is getting to Tahoe, big thing for Bay Area residents. It's kind of difficult. You have to drive up there. There's snow. So we're using Wi-Fi enabled buses to get up there and creating some sort of platform where you can plan with friends, and then book buses, and then get up there easily on a Wi-Fi enabled bus. And without further ado, I'll let Brad demonstrate.
So yeah, last October, we were looking, at how we were going to try and start getting started on this, and so we were looking at third-party, sort of booking platforms, and we quickly realized that was going to shortcut, or that was going to be a roadblock real quick. So luckily somebody mentioned Meteor, so without really any JavaScript or experience or development experience, we jumped in, and so this is where we are today. So any user can come in, view the schedule, they're able to pick a trip, and then, so here this is all templated out. We're running it from an administration panel, pulling all the data from collection, so it's real easy to add trips. They would make some selections, and then as they go to checkout, they're prompted to sign in. We're using the Accounts UI package, so easy sign in with Facebook. And as you sign in, you notice a lot of your selections, they are retained, so we're using the Session Amplify package to save your settings locally. Otherwise, we're having trouble with everything disappearing. So it's a good way for like a user to come to your site and surf around without having to start or sign in. So as you go to the checkout, we're using the balanced API. So it's once you figure out the async, how to get that callback, it's pretty easy to use. And so once we get confirmed that the card charge was successful, we route the user to a confirmation page, they get email, and then at any time, you come back to your My Trips page and see any of the trips you've saved or booked. So that's kind of where we're at today. We're looking at trying to make it easier to plan with friends, incentivize people for inviting friends, and so making planning a lot easier. Package list kind of adds up real fast, but with Meteor Update, it keeps it pretty easy to run everything. Yeah, and so that's just a little spin on a couple mechanical engineers building in Meteor. So if, any questions on what we built?
Thank you so much. Dan.
What was the payment API and how would it compare with the Stripe if you look at both?
Repeat the question.
What was the payment API and how would you compare it with Stripe? It's balanced payments. And the way I understand it, the main difference is you have an escrow, and it makes it easy to distribute money from that escrow to multiple other accounts. And it's pretty easy to issue holds. And so the idea is for group planning, we'll be able to try and make sure, maybe set up some almost crowdsourcing sort of strategy so we don't charge people initially until everyone's in and then implement it.
Yeah, and to add to that, the main benefit of the escrow is that for us, since we're doing transportation, perhaps lodging, lift tickets, rentals, and things like that, we can collect money from customers and then divvy that money out pretty easily all through the API.
Great. Any other questions? Very cool. Thank you.
Thanks guys.
Right, next up, we have Ben Green, who spoke at the last Devshop. He's going to give us an update on his work with reactive MySQL.
Hello. All right. Hi, I'm Ben. I'm not just going to talk about MySQL. I've also got another couple of packages that I've been working on lately as far as lazy loading your templates so you can get a faster page load. But I guess first I'll start off with the MySQL update. Since December 4th, I have made it work using the binary replication log instead of just using triggers. So you can now use MySQL with a larger system. If you've got multiple Meteor servers connected to one MySQL database, that works with the binary log, and it should be a lot faster. You don't longer have to pull any sort of database table. So take another look at the numtel MySQL package if you're interested in SQL support. And in the coming months, there should be even more. So keep an eye on that. As far as lazy loading Meteor packages, that's something that I've kind of looked at these last couple weeks. When you get a ton of templates on your Meteor app, they've got to all be loaded on initial page load when you stick them in the client directory. But there's a way that I came up to kind of change the way around so you can stick your templates, your HTML, your JavaScript, your CSS files in the client in the public or private directory and load them using Iron Router when you change to a specific route. So I'm going to bring up an example app that I had made. Let's see. Oops. All right, so if you go to my GitHub here, it's numtel/Meteor component example. This is a Meteor app that you can clone and take a look at. Basically what it does is it's exactly like the default Meteor Hello app, except the template is loaded later on using this package. So you can still click it, and it's green because I wanted to make sure that you could load CSS files. But the main thing that drives this is this public sources.json file, where you can describe, let's see, how do you zoom in on a Mac? Where you can describe basically these bundles, which I'm calling them, that get loaded using Iron Router. So I've got these main.js, tpl.html, and styles.less in my public directory, and those are getting directed to a hello.js and hello.css file. So then I can load that just like as if it was another file in my public directory. And then you can cut all these files out of your initial page load by not putting them in your client directory. And this is running off of public sources, but I've also got something called private sources, which does the exact same thing, except you're able to intercept loads or intercept these bundles as they're loading and say, this connection is not actually authenticated to load the administrator panel. We're not going to give that to them. Or if they are able to do that, then you could load the administrator panel. And that's linked down further down on the example here. So this uses Miro preloader, which Miro Hibbler has written, and public sources. And then you go down further, and you can see the link to the private sources package, which has basically the same thing. And it uses an Iron Router plugin, which this documentation could probably be improved. I'm not saying this is the only way that you could lazy load templates. I'd have had suggestions that possibly there might be a way that it'd be useful to load them all on the server and then have some sort of subscription, but this is ready to go right now if you want to give it a try. Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Can you control the source order with that file?
The question was, can you control the source order? Very good question. Yeah, the source order is actually somewhat important. It is loaded, first file to the last file, just like you would expect. Except for HTML files, they are automatically brought to the front. So your JavaScript files can see that you've actually got the templates there, which is the same thing that Meteor does. So if you're using like Jade, which also for using templates, it does not automatically have Jade built in. So you've got to remember that your Jade templates are going to have to go before your JavaScript or CoffeeScript or whatever you're using. And you can do hot code pushes, all that kind of thing using this technique. But if you had your app running and then you added a package like Jade, you'd have to restart for it to recognize that you can use Jade templates. I just don't have that working yet. Any other question? Yeah.
Does this work with server-side build plugins? Like, how do you have less working?
Oh, like how does the actual internal of the package work?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, like, will it work with any build plugin that you can download from Atmosphere?
Yes. Okay, the question was, will this work with any build plugin you can download from Atmosphere? And the question is yes. Yes, it does work with any build plugin. It hooks into the same build process that Meteor uses to build your app. It's only like 30 lines of code, the actual implementation. It was definitely just like a major head scratcher trying to figure out how to configure the functions so that you could do it this way. But from my initial tests, it seems to work all right, and I'd love to hear more feedback on it. And if somebody wants to try it out, please let me know.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, last up we have Tyler Smith, and his talk is called Scalable Consensus.
Okay, hi everybody. I am Tyler. I want to talk to you about my Meteor app that I built recently using Meteor. It's called Gadfly. So one of the things that I thought was very formative in society since I was very young was the fact that consensus wasn't really scalable. And what I mean by that is the more people that you need to involve in a decision, the harder it is to actually form a consensus. And you see that a lot in stuff like representative government or boards of directors and stuff like that. So this is something that I built just to kind of try to address that problem. And I thought it was just kind of cool. It's not really a big deal. Just kind of wanted to like share. So, yeah. So the idea behind this is that I notice things like Reddit on the internet. And Reddit's a way, or I look at Reddit and I see a lot of people involved in big discussions, but it uses like really latent technologies to create what I find is a very democratic process. Like, it is a way to involve a lot of people in a discussion, and the discussion actually goes somewhere. But the thing that I see about Reddit, I see it has a lot of potential for like this problem that I mentioned earlier, but I think that also it is optimized for like content aggregation, which is what it does. That's what it's designed for. So what I did is very simply made something that is Reddit, but designed specifically for arguments. And that's what I wanted to show you. So here's an example. I've got this cool force-directed graph, D3 stuff. And what this is a thread on Reddit about doxing by Rebecca Watson, who, if you don't know, is like this like Gamersgate person. And what the idea behind at least what you're seeing here, I've actually like thought a lot about this project, and there's a whole lot I could do with this, but the very simplified version that I have to show for you today is a simple thing where every interaction that you do is either an agreement or a disagreement, and agreements apply to the thing they refer to positively, and disagreements apply to the thing they do negatively. So the idea is that if you have like a traditional forum post, right, about like US foreign policy, and then you've got maybe like someone brings up the founding fathers' intentions, and it's like that's a relevant topic for that discussion, but it is also off topic because it derails what the thing was trying to do. I wanted to take that divergence, which is, I think, incredibly important, and create a system that allowed that discussion to flourish and still contribute to the whole without like derailing it. So that's what this is. And it's a view. You've got like this like person who's like talking about doxing, disagrees with it, and then this like big long comment chain, but that doesn't like detract from the main discussion. And this is, as I said, a very simplified thing, but at the end of the day, when you follow this to its conclusion, what you have is a like concrete value, which is what that result of that discussion is, whether people agree or disagree with it. So after all this like stuff, you have a value, which is what something is. And I think that is a cool thing.
Does anyone have a question for Tyler?
Yes.
How do you know if something is agreement or disagreement?
Oh, how do I know if it's an agreement or disagreement? Well, the green arrow means agreement, red arrow means disagreement. And if you mean like in terms of selecting what you do, like for example, I'll do a little demo here. Oh, I think my friends are doing stuff. So I'll do like Tyler, no, which is obviously not exactly a good disagreement, but I could disagree with that and be like, no, isn't a good argument.
So you're saying that you're trusting the person posting the comment to select whether he or she is agreeing or disagreeing?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that strike you as... The question was, do I trust the person to select whether they're agreeing or disagreeing? And I'm saying...
It's going to break immediately on Reddit.
What?
This will break immediately on Reddit.
You don't trust people to know whether they're agreeing or disagreeing about something?
Well, so I would expect some kind of interesting like analysis of the text that figures out whether there is agreement or disagreement. But if you let the person posting the disagreement choose whether they can like completely mess up this graph, then they're going to do that, aren't they?
Oh, well, I mean, nothing's immune to trolls, if that's what you're saying.
Fair point.
I had kind of designed this thing to try to involve like the community as a whole as much as possible. Naturally, there are going to be people that try to screw it up, but that's inevitable on the internet. Any other questions?
All right, thanks so much.
Oh,
was there a question? Okay.
I was going to say, so people come here and vote, you're not doing any sentiment analysis of Reddit threads or anything, and automatically creating these graphs?
Oh, well, sorry, I don't think I understand the question.
So your demo is that people would come to your application and use your kind of UI widget on the side, or are you saying that you are analyzing existing threads and basically...
No. That was just an example that I sort of did. People would be like, sorry, the question was, is this like a reflection of Reddit, essentially? And my answer is no. Someone would come to this arguing something like maybe like some sort of proposition in California or whatever. Like, I think this is this. And then it would be deliberated on. But this is independent of Reddit. I just use a Reddit thread as an example.
Any more questions? All right, thank you, Tyler.
Sure.
All right, so that's it for Devshop tonight. Thank you very much for joining us and for tuning in. If you are watching this live online, you can rewatch the live stream indefinitely. And we're also going to be posting each talk as its own video very soon. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you will get notified of that. We also had a Devshop London today. We have Devshop every month in San Francisco and London, so videos from London will also be posted really soon. So they have great content there, so please keep an eye out for that. Our next Devshop San Francisco is going to be February 26th. It's the last Thursday of the month. That's our standard time that we have Devshop San Francisco. So you can go online to devshop.meteor.com, and that's where we'll be posting it, and you can add it to your calendar using our Google Calendar button there. We have Uri Goldstein is going to give a talk about his Meteor and Angular integration. And we're also going to have one of our core developers, David Greenspan, give a talk about the logic solver that he's working on for Meteor. So really good talks lined up for next month. All right, so thank you very much for coming, and good night. And just for people who are here in person, if you could take one piece of trash with you before you leave and throw it away, that would be really helpful. Sam, do you want them to stack chairs or no?